Welcome along, one and all, to PSGL Season 37 PSF3 powered by GT Omega. This is the 9th round of the championship from one of motor racing's most revered venues, Spa-Francorchamps. The Belgian Grand Prix is on the agenda tonight. My name is Daka and I'll be helping you through the action here tonight once again, and alongside me as always, it is Ghost once again. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, and yeah, an absolutely iconic track. I was just saying to you before the stream, it is tough to have a bad race around Spa, and I do hope I'm proved right today. We've had 3 fantastic races the last few weeks, and yeah, let's hope to keep that streak going as the championship, both championships in fact, closed up quite a lot last week. So it's all in the balance with just a few rounds to go in the business end of the season.
Absolutely right. We saw NLR Coolman. He had a difficult race last time out in Mexico, finishing in 9th. His nearest rival in the championship, Finley, also had a tough race, but superbly rebounded and came back near the end to take a very valuable podium and move within 10 points of the title lead. The Constructors' Battle, go into it in more detail later on, but that is incredibly close at the moment. But we will watch our championship leader first around the outlap, taking on this iconic circuit. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, down towards La Source he goes, brakes at about the 100-meter board. You can chance a little later if you're really brave on the brakes, but Coolman, pretty nicely done through there. You've got to get so close to the apex, and now into Eau Rouge and Radion, and it is that way round, I promise. Down towards the Camel Straight and towards Lecombe now. Very, very long straight this, with a long burst of DRS. We'll see plenty of overtakes down here. Brake at about 75 meters and down the gears into gear 5 for Coolman through Lecombe, and now down towards this tricky second sector. Very, very easy to lose a bunch of time and not even realize you're losing it through these few corners. Into the left-hander, or a little bit of a slide as he turned in, but not too bad for Coolman. Through Pouon, is it going to be flat? Yeah, flat out for Coolman through Pouon. I think we'll see that for most, if not all, drivers today. And then down towards this tough chicane here. Through the right and to the left. There used to be curbs on the inside there last year, but not anymore. You've got to stay on the track. Through down towards the last couple of right-handers and into the final sector. Now down towards the final chicane. Overtake being used. It's easy to run out of ERS in qualifying on this circuit. Very surprisingly so it can be. And Coolman has got a handle on it though as he flies through Blanchimont and down towards the final bus stop chicane. Down the gears into third, clatters over that curb. Nicely done. Uses all the road he's got, and on the power on the exit to the line. It's a 41.563 to start us off.
That's a respectable time for the first run, but it is immediately topped by the man who has dominated proceedings in the last couple of rounds here in PSF3. CPI Fraser goes fastest 41.2. The times are quickly coming in this opening phase of the session. A lot of times very fast, one after the other. Nick on his second race goes a second very nice lap of a 41.311. Let's keep an eye out for more lap times coming in. Crest Rebel 8th on a 42 flat. Expect bigger gaps around here because it is such a long track in terms of distance and time. I believe the longest that the calendar has to offer around these first runs. Slash comes up to the line, but it was not a competitive lap time. Coming up now is Amalia Pease, goes into 11th position. Next up, Moikuli invalid on a 42.1. Then Karfolidis will come swiftly over the line, goes 11th on a 41.9. Very fast influx of times coming in early in this session. A lot more busy on track than it usually has been, and this may be a moot point, but it is very overcast at the start of this session, and I do wonder if these drivers, again, we don't know what the weather's going to do, but these drivers seem to be in more of a rush than usual to get those times in. Or is that just because you don't have as many opportunities around here? What is it, Ghost?
I'm not sure. It could well be that it's going to rain later on. It could just be that we've got a full grid tonight, and so the track is busier than usual. Slash gets a bit on the grass through the right-hander there, but I don't think he's turned his ERS off, so he's coming straight back to the pits. Yeah, plenty of times on the board and very, very close together as usual in PSF3. But I think the interesting point is that Fraser is dominant in sector 2, 3/10 faster than anyone else in the middle sector. That's where he's gained all this time. So Nick, only 81 thousandths down overall. If he can find some time in that middle sector, then Fraser's time could be vulnerable, although it also shows that there's time to gain for Fraser in the first two sectors too. And Nick is purple in both sector 1 and 3. So yeah, we'll see if Fraser has time to find, or if that time is going to be vulnerable when people find out how he does that middle sector.
That could be true, but I think a possibility as well, as is inherent with the circuit of Spa, is a setup compromise. Sector 2 is very different from the first two sectors. It's a confidence sector in terms of drivability, yes, but it's also a very high downforce sector, whereas Sector 1 and 3 have very long full throttle sections that can make a big difference then. We've got two championship contenders that decided to go out a lot later than everyone else. The first is Leonardo, who has just come over the line to start a lap time. Finley is following closely behind, so we'll see how these two are able to get on there. The only drivers on track at the moment. So Leonardo and Finley. Watch that time of Fraser. Let's see how well it stacks up next to these two. So Leonardo heading down towards Erosion and up that rapid climb to Radion, then onto the Camel Straight now in 8th gear, and the foot flat to the floor, and now the DRS open. Down the Camel Straight towards the end of the first sector split. Watch for that first sector time. It should be in the 30s, and it is. It's a low 0.7, which is very, very quick. Then navigating through Lacombe and now Malmedy at the highest point on the track. Downhill all the way down towards Bruxelles. One of the most difficult corners on the track, in my opinion. So difficult on the brakes, especially if you do not use ABS. Then heading through the no-name corner, managing to get the nose in very nicely. And maybe a little bit of margin being left in terms of apex speed, but of course it is still early in the session. There's a lot more time to be found later on. The pole time, I was expecting it to be around about that 141 mark, around the 141 flat, as Leonardo misses the apex there of Fania. I think he was on that entry curve a little bit too heavily, and I think maybe losing a little bit of time with that. Let's see the second sector time. It's decent. It's around about where Coolman's was, a 13.7, which would, you would think, put him a couple of tenths down on the fastest time. Finley is tracking behind on the track, but has not been a good lap and actually now invalidated coming out of Stavilo. So Leonardo, we will follow, heading up towards the bus stop chicane, hard on the brakes, 4th gear, rotating it aggressively on the way in, getting that exit as good as he can. A little bit of oversteer on the way out, planting that throttle, spinning up the rear tyres, goes 4th on a 41.5. So Leonardo, a solid lap, but just shy of the top times for the moment. But still, getting a little bit of march on Coolman and Finley. Getting that first time invalidated, not the start to the evening he would have wanted, because at Spa you get so few opportunities.
Yeah, definitely, especially given that they came out of the pits so late. It's going to be debatable whether they even get 2 more laps, especially Leonardo, who's going to have to go round for an in-lap again. Leonardo was purple in Sector 1, but it's just that middle sector from Fraser is just a step above everyone else. And you could be right, Daka, it could just be setup related. And that could perhaps maybe indicate that we've got some rain on the way for the race, perhaps. Maybe Fraser's gone for a higher downforce setup in preparation for that, or maybe he's just absolutely cracked in the middle sector, who knows. But Leonardo will be very happy with P4 at the moment. Coolman is improving through Sector 1. Sector of the circuit, but Nick has gone purple in Sector 1 once again, and we'll see if he can get Sector 2 a little bit better this time and put that time of Fraser under some pressure.
Yeah, let's track these guys around the lap then. We are following Coolman heading through Puon. Again, this is a confidence sector. You need to carry just monstrous amounts of apex speed to be able to hook up a good lap around here. That looked good around Lefania, managing to keep it nicely within the track limits, taking all the right lines towards Stavlu. A little bit wide of the apex then. He is finding a quarter of a second to the first two sectors, so actually if he hooks up this last sector, which all comes down to that bus stop chicane, then he could be right in the mix for that pole position. Coolman is a driver maybe not considered a qualifying specialist. He does have a pole position this season regardless, but let's see how he takes on this tough braking zone and traction zone on the exit. Third gear, taking a load of the curb on the way through, missing that curb on the second part to open up that exit then on the throttle yet again. It is second, just in front of Nick. Nick heading through, and again you mentioned that second sector, looks like he didn't hook it up this time either and has gone to the pit lane, maybe leaving more time for another run later on, but has decided that lap's not good enough and gets out of the way as soon as possible and tries to crack on with more laps later on.
Meanwhile, Fraser purple in Sector 2 again as he comes to the line. It's going to be even better. 40.9 from Fraser sets the gauntlet down to everyone else. Beat that. And it's not only that he's got a high downforce setup either, Daka, because he was, up until a few moments ago when Fleddy actually beat him, I think, in that final sector. Fraser was purple in the final sector, which is basically all straights apart from the bus stop. So Mathis, though, goes to P2, so a new name towards the front of the grid. Could be a spanner in the works to the main championship contenders. And, at the moment, Finley's his own spanner in the works down in 20th. He's going to need to find a lap. He's going across now to start his next attempt. But, that first attempt was very scrappy from the man in P2 in the standings. And he's going to have to do a lot better than that as Franek Deshorny goes to P3 in the meantime.
Yeah, good lap from Franek, a driver that's really found form in recent rounds and was in the end bumped up to P2 after getting a 10-second time penalty removed. So finishing that race in Mexico, second place, very valuable points, and you could say maybe an outsider in that championship fight. We will see how things do evolve later on into the season. Still so much story to be told with a third of the season still to go. I'm seeing an increasing amount of invalidations out there on the circuit as these drivers continue to push the limits. Fleddy, I believe, is the furthest driver along on a clean lap, currently in P7, 141.491. Let's see what he's got in offer in this final sector. On the brakes, straightening up that entry, but goes a little bit too deep, and he's going to bail out of that one. Is Finley out of the session? That I'm guessing is connection related, but Finley, yet another hammer blow. Again, we hope we can get him back in as soon as possible. But again, just summing up a nightmare start to the evening for the man second in the standings at the moment.
Yeah, it's not the first time this season he's been plagued with connection issues in qualifying especially. And, the last time it happened, it was a fairly small grid, I think 12 or 13, so he had the opportunity to get himself back up, but with a full grid tonight, it's going to make his job exponentially more difficult to get himself back into that fight. You mentioned the invalidations, Daka. I would hazard a guess to say that the vast majority of those are happening at turns 11 and 12. That's No Name and Puon, particularly on the exits. Very, very easy to go wide at No Name or even too far on the inside and cut the apex. And there's also Stavilo, you could go a bit deep as well, and possibly the bus stop chicane if you try and hook it round too much on the inside of the apex. But yeah, that'll be where most of them are happening. I can't see very many elsewhere just because of the way the curbs are and, the lack thereof in some corners, as Nick comes through Sector 1 and... he is once again purple in that first sector, so he really needs to find some time in this middle sector. I would definitely say Nick has some quite low wings on his setup, which might make things interesting going into the race.
Yeah, that could be a weapon in the DRS and slipstream battles we are so used to seeing. This middle sector could be the Achilles heel. Let's see if he's able to maximise this one as he sets up Fanya using that curb on the way in to open it up. Rotates fairly well through the way in, but battling a little bit of oversteer and understeer at the same time, heading through Fanya the second part. Let's see, he does find, well, some time at the very least, but yeah, that middle sector continuing to prove a bit of an issue, but the times are so close from second down to fifth. This could well be at least very good enough for second. I don't know what these guys are going to do about Fraser's time. That is quite the outlier in this session. More than 3/10 of a second clear. Nick setting up the bus stop chicane, gets a nice entry, but not deciding to go through with that. And I wonder why, because I wouldn't have thought he would have been down on his lap. Leonardo pits as well just behind. So Nick maybe thinking, maybe he was up, but wasn't happy with it, and has decided to give himself a fighting chance of just one more run to end this session.
It's going to be really tight for time, though. 2.5 minutes to go. He's just being wheeled into his pit box right now, and with a 1:41 lap, he is in a lot of trouble. I don't think he's going to get another lap. It's going to be extremely close, but I think he'll be 5 or 10 seconds out. So that's going to be disappointing for him if that does indeed happen. Plenty of drivers out on outlaps, though, and one thing I noticed earlier in the session, Daka, was that Fraser, by sheer luck, came into the pits at the same time as the other person who he's in the pit box with, or he shares a pit box with tonight. Obviously, with the multiplayer cars, the pit box is assigned completely randomly, as far as we're aware, so you don't know who your teammate is until you pit, and Fraser has gotten a distinct advantage there by knowing who it is. I didn't quite catch who exactly it was, but Fraser will definitely know. So good information for the current provisional pole sitter.
Knowledge is power in pretty much all walks of life, and including in league racing. Yeah, that's a distinct advantage for Fraser, because we've seen Finlay especially getting caught up in double stacks in the last couple of rounds, and well, with the field so close as it typically is in PSF3, that can cause such problems. Coolman has just headed onto his lap through last source, but picked up a little bit of oversteer then, heading out of that first corner. Behind him, Spiros, Ward, Slash, they've also kicked off on flying laps, and there is much more to come, so let's keep an eye on those timing screens. They are going to be flashing all colours in these final stages. Coolman to the end of the first sector, and yes, that was a bit of a costly mistake, heading out of last source, getting a little bit of oversteer. The championship leader is under quite a bit of pressure. He's got a solid lap in, and in fact with Finlay down there was a second lobby invite put out, but I'm not sure if he's back in, and will certainly not be setting a lap time in this session. So Finlay, that is a major blow to a top championship contender, and a real opportunity for the likes of Coolman, but also some of the drivers that are in pursuit. Leonardo, Fraser, Frank Jashorny, those kind of drivers that are up there in the standings. That will open things up for those guys if they can put in a good lap at the end of this session. Coolman, let's see if this one has come along. There have been a couple of mistakes.
Watch Nick Daka. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, he's just about got it. By 1 second, he will be able to set a time. So we'll see how good it is. But the championship leader coming down towards the bus stop chicane. Apologies to interrupt you there, Daka, but that was mighty close. Down to the final chicane comes Coolman. What can he do? Clatters over the curb again and into the final corner. DRS open and using that overtake, but a 10th down. No improvement for Coolman. So we'll see if anyone can unseat him as Slash goes to P8 after not setting a time all session long. Finally gets one in. Good pressure lap there from Slash as all the rest of the drivers coming through. Nick is purple again in Sector 1, believe it or not. But someone unexpected is purple in Sector 2. That's Louis Baptiste. He's coming to the line right now. What's it going to be for him? It's a 41.4 in the end, but a mighty middle sector as everyone else now coming to the line. Frank Shoshone is going to be flying next up down the final corner. Here he goes. What's it going to be? It's
Oh.
P2, just a tenth down on Fraser, who couldn't improve, but his time's still looking fairly unbeatable.
Just over a tenth of a second clear. I'm keeping half an eye on Nick. Let's see if this lap. Oh, he is finding quite a bit of
Much
time
better.
out there. So let's see what he can do. Further along the lap, though. Moikuli to the line. 15th. Predestinato following 16th at the moment. Jumps up to 8th. Really good final lap. But let's watch Nick. He barely, by the skin of his teeth, made it over the line to get an opportunity in this session. At the very least, it could be on the second row. Could it be more than that with a super run through the bus stop chicane? Grabs a little bit of oversteer on the exit. RT Nick coming up to the line. It's 4th indeed on the second row. But I think given the circumstances, he'll be pretty delighted with that one. My oh my, what a decision to abort that lap before. And in the end, it does pay off. But wow, by the slimmest of margins. Fraser, though, no touching that man at the moment in PSF3 and very dominant. Frantic, though, a superb final lap. Goes second. Maliapi's right up there. Strong lap from him. Goes just in front of Nick on that second row. Matisse then in 5th position from Carfalidis. Kuhlmann in the end slipping down to 7th in that session, but still a good run from him in the context of the championship from Predestinato, Louis and Napple rounding out the top 10. Behind that, Fleddy / Leonardo will be disappointed with 13th. Behind that, Spyros, Sieb, Moikulic, Zviadek, Chris, Rebel, Wards and Finlay with a tumultuous session to bring that to a close. Well, that was quite a story with Nick. And well, with those low wings that you'd think he's running, how much of a weapon could that be at a track like Spa and the nature of the racing here?
Yeah, it certainly could be. Although I do believe they can change their setup, so maybe there might be some
Ah, you're right.
shenanigans going on there. But I mean, if that's anything to go by, generally I find that drivers, they may change their setups a little bit, but they don't change the philosophy of their setups between qualifying and the race. Is generally what I feel. I think if he's gone lower wings than everyone else in qualifying, he's probably going to have similarly lower wings in the race. The nuances of the setup might be a bit different, but yeah, it will be largely the same sort of thinking behind it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's how I would see it as well. You would tweak what you need to tweak, and of course the car will handle differently. The qualifying in the race take on different tones in terms of what you want from the car. But yes, I would certainly say that you would want the same basic characteristics at the very least to go off of, because you want a consistency with the setup too. You want to drive what you're used to. Let's see how that does unfold in the race. We can talk about though what this does for the championship potentially, because Fraser has made quite a charge in the last few rounds, and going into this race, he is 30 full points behind Kuhlmann. That is a substantial amount, but at this rate, with so many drivers popping in then seemingly specialised at different tracks and getting themselves up there in qualifying, if Fraser is doing as he's doing, being up there every round, even with the lead that Kuhlmann has over him, and you see Finley's going to need another solid recovery drive. Fraser is very close to the likes of Leonardo, Acid, Frantic, Deshorny in the standings. You get the sense that Kuhlmann, well, you'd say his nearest rival is down there at the moment. It's not safe with how many drivers are getting between him and Fraser on a consistent basis now in this championship.
Yeah, absolutely right. And well, there's plenty of ways this could pan out. There's only 4 rounds to go, including this one. But even so, I mean, 30 points. It may be a lot in that context, but as soon as you start getting drivers ahead of you having poor races, especially when the pressure of the championship starts mounting, if Fraser can continue this sort of dominance and rack up those 16 points week after week, then he's going to quickly find himself perhaps in with a shot at this. He's not really in the constructors' battle as far as I can see, but he could even drag his team into that as well by the end if he can keep doing this. So yeah, there's still a lot on the line for Fraser despite his poor start to the season, and plenty of reason to think that he might be able to claw his way back into this fight.
Yeah, and this round I think is going to say a lot. After this, we've got three rounds left to go in the season. If you're far behind, gaps can be either mathematically insurmountable or, at the very least, very unrealistic. So this round is going to mean a lot for that championship, the Drivers' Championship anyway. You mentioned the Constructors' fight, though, because it is incredibly tight. Of course, we can't see, because of the F1 World Cars, what everyone's in on a regular basis, but Mercedes, that team, which is Kuhlmann and Fleddy, currently leads 1 point ahead of Haas of Acid and Belly. That team's went through multiple changes in personnel throughout this season, and then another 4 points behind that is the V-Carb team of Finley and Karafalidis, who granted didn't have the best qualifying. I think Karafalidis did all right, but 5 points between three teams. That is most unusual, and it's going to lead to some very exciting prospects going forward. And in these later rounds, we're going to be following that constructors' battle as well as the drivers' battle. They could both be coming down to the wire.
Yeah, and of course, the V-carb duo Finley and Karafalidis had their own misfortune last week with Karafalidis in the front group for the majority of the race, and then, of course, the incident that shall not be named occurred. But they still find themselves only 5 points behind, as you say, and they're very, very much in this. In my opinion, it's with the way attendance has been, who knows how the last few rounds could pan out. We haven't seen Acid in a while, for example. But in my opinion, I think this is a battle between Coolman and his teammate Fleddy and Finley and Karafalidis in the V-Carbs. So, yeah, I really hope that also ties in, even if the drivers gets a little less exciting in the last few rounds, which can happen. The constructors will remain very close all the way to the end.
Let's keep an eye on it. Now, in this bit of a downtime, let's have a word for PSGL's sponsors. PSGL is sponsored by GT Omega. The link is in the description down below. To their site, you can receive a 5% discount on all GT Omega products at checkout using the code PSGL. Likewise, we are sponsored by Sim Racing Centre. You can go there also using the link in the description. SRC will provide you with all your setup and coaching needs on the F1 game. There is a 10% discount at checkout using the code PSGL. Ghost, let's talk strategy for this race. In terms of the tyres, and one thing that I've noticed from doing my own research ahead of this race is that the medium tyre doesn't seem to really work all that well in the race.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, I've had some research of myself with a few races that I've commentated on, but funnily enough, all three of those races that I've seen in the last few weeks all were changeable weather. So it's difficult to say really. But you're right that the hards are extremely good around here, as they are around a lot of tracks. But the mediums I found weren't that bad. They would go for a while. I think certainly if you find maybe a safety car at the halfway point or just before the halfway point, I think you might see a bit of a split between drivers on whether they go mediums or hards. Because the hards are going to be better towards the end, but you know very slow at first. I said they're very good, but that's only because they last a while. I find they're very slow compared to the mediums, especially in the first 5 laps or so, but then they come back into the race. So it's how good you feel about your tyre wear. Can you get the mediums to the end while not sacrificing yourself to the hards in the last few laps? Or do you feel less safe with your tyre management and you'd rather go hards and have the better stint towards the end? It's a matter of preference if we do get a situation like that.
So we'll see if anyone's going to look to try and claim track possession in the early laps using those medium tyres. I've even seen the soft tyres used
Yeah, me too.
in league races that don't have a safety car. So they are actually usable here at this track, which is not something that you typically see. But we will say about changeable conditions. It didn't come to anything in qualifying, but we did note quite a lot of cloud cover in that session. I think it actually got more sunny near the end. But it is Spa, and there is a relatively high chance of rain always at this circuit. So let's see if that will come to pass. We are now just getting ourselves loaded in though into the session. 22 laps of, again, one of the most historic tracks we have seen in Formula One and all of motor racing. We load in. It is once again overcast to start, so let's keep an eye out, see if it does evolve and change as we look forward to the race. Ghost, how do you see this one unfolding?
I hope for a bit of rain. It always gives some drama and forces drivers to change their strategies, especially on a track like this. Such a long circuit and a long lap. It means that if you get the decision for changeable conditions slightly wrong, if you're out by one lap, it can make a massive difference. Just because you have to drive in the unfavorable conditions for a lot longer than you would at, say, Hungary or a shorter track like that. So, yeah, I do hope for some rain. It is overcast, so there is some semblance of hope that might happen. But for the moment, it's dry, and I do expect a fair amount of soft usage. But here we go.
Here we go then, building up to 5 red lights. And we're off the grid in Belgium. From the front, it is Fraser. And a good start, converting that pole position behind Frank Deshorny, trying to defend. Malia has got to the inside, going in to La Source. And oh, cars all over the road. I saw end plates flying. And Fleddy is gone backwards. So is Viadic. They're getting all crossed up at the back, as at the front of the field. They climb up Radion and Rouge, heading up towards the end of the straight, at the Campbell Straight, towards Lecom. It is one of the highlights of any F1 season then. Pulling out the slipstream burst is Nick. Again with those low wings, drawing up and alongside. Maliapis looking towards the outside, gets shot off as Maliapis looks outside, and Kuhlman goes inside, moving up the order. It's a great start for the championship leader, moves up into position 4. Fraser does convert from Frank Deshorny, Maliapis, Kuhlman, and Nick, who looked like he was in the ascendancy, goes backwards in the end. Behind, it is still to be sorted out. They are still battling it out 2 by 2, heading through it. Bruxelles, again, we mentioned Chris Rebel, Zviadek, Fleddy having trouble at the start. Finley still at the back of the field. Everyone relatively clean, but there were some small incidents down there, Ghost.
Wonderful overtake from Coolman. He's going for another one here on the inside of Appy's, going into the next corner, and he's got it done. And Nick follows him through, or tries to. They're still side by side on the exit, but Nick gets it done, and Appy's losing 2 places in 2 corners there. But brilliant start for Coolman, exactly what he would have wanted. Up 4 positions already, up 6 for Wards, 5 for Moikuli, and 4 for Leonardo. Great starts for them, but the biggest losers, Fleddy, Napple, and Karafalidis, losing 6, 4, and 4 places respectively. But yeah, a chaotic start, but not in terms of crashes, just a lot of overtakes happening. And yes, there was a little bit of contact down towards La Source, but we've got 20 drivers on the grid. It would be hard for that not to happen. Yeah, we do have a spinner in the background. I think that's Finley, is it, perhaps, as DRS gets enabled. No, it was Wards, actually, all the way back down to 20th after a good start, as Leonardo makes up another place side by side down towards Eau Rouge and Radion for 2 by 2, in fact, for 7 and 8 and 8 and 9. What a brilliant bit of racing. All 4 of them get through safely, but they just about survive, as Coolman now up into second place, perhaps into first place, but he backs out before Lecom. And Coolman is a real threat to the race win here, and the championship leader is looking to bounce back after the disaster of last week.
He's went for the mediums at the start, and what a decision it has proved to be in this opening to the race. What a phenomenal run of overtakes, and staring down the man who has crushed the opposition in recent rounds. So Kuhlman chasing down Fraser. The hard runners behind have been left in the wake. I mentioned the mediums, they're maybe not the best race tyre, but maybe I'll be made to eat my words at this stage. Still Predestinato, Moikuli and Karafalidis in the mid-pack. They're running mediums and trying to move forward too. Leonardo with PA is pressuring Louis Baptiste down there at the moment. He's had a fairly solid start to the race too, up 5 places himself, as Wards has gone off yet again and actually straight out the session, and a VSC Julie is brought out, so Wards didn't catch that at all. Very bizarre place to go out, but yeah, the car swiftly removed, and AMS Wards no longer a factor in this race. What a disastrous lap and a half it was for the man who sadly is no longer with us tonight.
Makes it sound like he's dead.
Sorry. Maybe a bit much.
No, yeah, no, it started off very well for him, gained a few places, and then it just all went wrong. The medium runners coming into the pits, along with Nappel as well, who started on the hards. But Coolman, interestingly, staying out up there in P2. But I will say, I'm usually quite confident on my, strategy calls in the commentary box. I'm really surprised by how many people are on the hards. So I guess PSF3 knows better than me today. But DRS back enabled. We're back under green flags, and Coolman's got the jump on Fraser. Here he goes down towards Lecombe. He's on the outside line. Fraser breaks extremely late, and it's too late. He goes wide. Coolman's going to be back at him on the exit. Down the inside he goes on the last corner of Lecombe, and he's into the lead of the Belgian Grand Prix. What a brilliant series of moves and great couple laps from Coolman. And, well, he may be bogged down in the second stint perhaps when he goes onto those hard tyres, presumably. Maybe he'll go medium soft, who knows at this stage. But yeah, he's using those mediums to full effect in this first stint, and if he can get out of DRS range of Fraser, he's going to be in a very good position.
What a phenomenal charge from the championship leader, showing his worth and moving fourth here in Belgium. Yes, this is a key couple of laps, and Fraser, before those hard tyres, they will come into play later in the stint, but right now he's got to fight and stay with the man in front. The train behind is relatively intact all the way down to Leonardo, but then a substantial gap to Slash, 2.5 seconds, as Leonardo actually is on the move alongside Louis Baptiste towards the bus stop chicane, getting very close to the back of Maliapis. Still there is Louis, not giving it up, but contact between the two of them side by side, and Louis has to yield. In the end, Leonardo up a spot to P7. Great start to his race too, is up 6 places himself, moving up the order on the hard tyres. So great start from Leonardo, making up for a disappointing qualifying session. He is in that leading train, still all to play for, but that gap, rather unusual that it's opened up like that. It was closed up a little bit with Leonardo's move on Louis Baptiste in the contact. Fleddy up behind Slash should get through easily on the straight here towards Lecombe, but these guys have got to work together. Was it the VSC that created that opening in the gap?
It could well have been. I can't think of any other explanation unless there was some contact between them further back. Chris Rebel making an overtake as well, up to 14th place, but yeah, big gap between him and Finley as well, who's already up to 13th, but his progress has slowed since then. Of course, we've got those bottom 4 have all pitted already, but look at the massive gap between Moikuli and Predestinato. I think Predestinato must have pitted under the VSC to try and gain an advantage under that virtual safety car condition, but I think Moikuli and the rest all pitted for damage. And talking of damage, Finley has no front left end plate either, so well, it's a bad start for Finley once again, but as we've seen the last few weeks, a bad start doesn't really mean much when you're Finley. He can easily come back into this race later on. He's just that sort of driver, I think. But look at that gap. It's come down a little bit again between Fleddy and the front group. 1.7 is now the gap, and Nick is now 1.0, 1.1 behind Jashorny, and he won't get the DRS here, and that could be the top 3 speeding off into the distance.
The gap's being created because Coolman is putting these guys in the hurt locker at the moment, nearly breaking Fraser, and Fraser just about managing to stay with it. Frank Deshorny looks very solid in 3rd place, sticking nicely with Fraser, but that group behind has been distance and work to do for Nick, Matisse, Maliapis, and Leonardo, who's looking very menacing behind Maliapis too. But are these guys going to be pressing that overtake button and looking for moves? On the outside, Matisse, and then Leonardo in the slipstream tries to thread the needle down the middle of the Kemmel Straight, and Leonardo's going to muck both of them off. Oh, into the back of him is Maliapis though. He pushes Leonardo from behind. Nick trying to follow through. It's carnage down there. As swipey across the front of Maliapis was Leonardo. Nick moves forward. Louis now on the inside of Maliapis. It is chaos down there. Louis does get through, and I think they managed to get through all without damage, or were they? I think Nick may have picked up an end plate. Yes, Nick is missing an end plate after all of that carnage down there, and well, I said they need to work together, but that was anything but. They went all in, battling it out tooth and nail. Matisse and Leonardo came out the beneficiary, but Nick, Louis, Maliapis especially, big time losers out of that, and and Maliapis also with damage. It's far too early in the race, surely, to be racing at that intensity.
Well, it's really difficult to come off the accelerator pedal when you're a racer in that sort of situation, and you know there's places to be gained as Louis Baptiste makes it past Nick, presumably with the better exit due to Nick's damage, but they're going to be wheel to wheel again for bus stop. Perhaps Nick maybe looking to the inside, but no, backs out of it. Not willing to go for it, but a big mistake from Baptiste, locks the rears into bus stop, and Nick just unable to take advantage as Appies comes into the pits, presumably to repair damage. But yeah, I think when you've got four cars wide and one of them's completely onto the grass, I think it might be time to come off the accelerator pedal for just a tad. But all of them kept their foot in, none of them willing to give in, and well, that's the result. 2 cars with damage, 1 car in the pits, and I don't think anyone's particularly happy out of that exchange in the end.
Fraser for the lead on Kuhlmann, gets through, and after a lap ago he was struggling to stay in DRS. Are we seeing that crossover between the mediums and the hards? Kuhlmann ceding that lead. He's now got to focus on making those mediums last as long as he can, and for the moment staying with CPI Fraser, who now leads the race ahead of the championship leader. These two duking it out at the front of the order then. Franek just following in behind, who's 5th in the standings and also looking for a way in that podium place at the moment. Matisse behind nearly got back to these guys, but when they start opening it up with the DRS down the Kemmel Straight, it's such a huge advantage. And for Matisse, who is running all on his own, it is such a handicap, and you can see that gap to the top 3 opening up. It doesn't help, of course, that those top 3 guys have such phenomenal pace. They are going to be very difficult to bring back. And seeing splits at this stage as, Matisse gets a bit of oversteer actually, heading out of Stavolo and Curve Paul Frere. That's going to bring Leonardo right there with him. But seeing splits like this happening at Spa is very unusual. We've seen that gap from Louis downwards, or Fleddy downwards, I should say, plugged up by the guys behind. So they've managed to come back together in the rest of the field. But seeing the top 3 running off so early in the Belgian Grand Prix is rather unusual. And as I said just a few seconds ago, bringing them back is going to need a huge concerted effort from those behind.
Yeah, 2.5 seconds. It's gone up by a second since, well, the last half a lap, really. And, yeah, they're just so much faster than everyone else for race pace. At this stage, Leonardo has a little think about going side by side through Eau Rouge and Radion with Matisse, but chooses against it. And now he's going to have the DRS and will comfortably make that move. And talking of comfortable moves, Kuhlmann back into the lead of the Belgian Grand Prix. But, yeah, he's going to be a little bit struggling in the second stint when he goes onto the hard tyres, and everyone else is going to be on the mediums. But yeah, like you said, he's got to make those mediums last as long as he can, and then come in to try and get the undercut and gain a little bit more time. At the moment, his tyres will probably be around 5 or 6% more worn than the hards, I would guess. So yeah, he's going to be starting to struggle in a couple of laps, I think, compared to the drivers behind. But that 2.5 second gap to Leonardo will make him feel a lot more comfortable because, of course, he's going to be thinking about the championship this late into the season. I think he'd be perfectly happy with 3rd place, even if Fraser wins today.
Yeah, and well, with the 30-point lead he has on Fraser, you'd say that kind of loss per round. If you do the maths, I think he's still looking in very good shape. So Kuhlmann relaying at the moment with Fraser and Frank Deshorny, and the guys behind struggling to stay with. Fleddy's moved past Nick. We've seen Nick struggling with the damage. Seed behind also with damage and slash tracking in behind, trying to find a way through at the moment. That train runs down to 12th place, Finlay, who's kind of, for the last couple of laps, hung onto the back of this train, but has been thus far unable to find a way through. When you're in that DRS train, it's difficult to make those moves. Where you're the second car in the train, conversely, making those moves becomes really rather academic. But the gaps are a bit bigger this lap, so I think Fraser will be content to stay behind. Kuhlmann actually driving out of the slipstream there, down the Kemmel Straight. We are seeing Sieb and Nick swapping places. Nick just can't quite hold station with that damage, and Slash getting a little bit interested into Lacon, but it's one of those corners with such a short braking zone that you can't really make moves from distance, and Slash having to tuck in. And it's really, Nick, the pace isn't too bad with that damage, but he is sliding slowly but surely, and well, this must be such a painful experience for him, because you're you can't put yourself in a position to move up, and you're going to be forced to defend as drivers behind hone in on you, especially in these high downforce corners. Without an end plate, it makes things so much more difficult.
Especially if he does have the lower wings, it's going to be even more frustrating because he's going to gain time on the straights and then lose everything in the corners, and he's just going to not be able to turn the car on the apexes, and just going to feel so slow. Even if he's only losing a couple tenths a lap, it just feels slow and it gets in your head. So it's really hard to deal with, and down towards bus stop they go, and Slash is going to be all over the back of Nick's car on this next lap, I think, especially out of La Source. If Nick gets a poor exit, through the chicane they go, and just keeping in line for now, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some thoughts in the head of Slash. I'm not sure, he probably doesn't know Nick has damage, but he would hazard a guess with the more poor exits that Nick gets. I think you start to suspect that there's damage on the car ahead. Just law of large numbers, really, as they go through La Source, or not La Source, through Eau Rouge and Radion, and a change for the lead, but here comes Slash, and like I said, easily making that move up to P9, and Nick is just plummeting down the order.
And when Nick gets overtaken, he does, in the end, struggle to stay in the DRS of the car that has just overtaken him thereafter. So getting the move for Slash, very critical, and he needs a good middle sector still to stay with Sieb. Fleddy up ahead, Fleddy all over the back of Leonardo, as a poor exit from Louis puts Leonardo on the outside, but he backs out of that one, and actually there was slight front to back contact between Leonardo and Fleddy. I think Fleddy got away without any damage, but just a little bit of a tap between those two after that small mistake from Louis. He's going to have to work to stay with Matisse. The gap to the front guys, they aren't hemorrhaging time anymore, but it is still a losing fight at this stage, and one that they're certainly going to need more work to do. In the meantime, as Fraser got through for the lead, Frank Deschorney's also nipped his way through on Coolman. So Coolman sliding to the rear of this train. I don't think he'll be too concerned with that at the moment, as he's just following these guys, and they continue to pull clear from the drivers behind. You can see up in front Leonardo trying to get back in the ascendancy as he draws level with Louis, and in front before the bus stop chicane, easing through in the end, and he seems to have quite low wings, as well as Coolman from position 3 does pit. I think the mediums were reaching the end of their lifespan, at least in terms of competitive running, so he comes in, is going to get off them surely onto the hard tyres, and grabbing a bit of an undercut. Now he will be under threat in the closing laps, but Coolman, you would say, as for a first stint, excellent showing from him, getting right up with the leaders.
Yeah, definitely he's done what he needed to do, as Spyros goes wheel to wheel with Nick down towards Eau Rouge, and Radion backs out, but Finley takes full advantage and sweeps around. Brilliant move from the man in second place in the standings, and he's going to make a double move here, get past the stricken car of Nick. There is still damage to Finley's car, but he doesn't care at the moment. 1.8 seconds now to Slash, but he gets himself a track limits penalty and ruins it all in the end. But yeah, he'll be very happy with those couple of moves that he made, but just the damage is proving too much, and yeah, the track limits warnings are going to start racking up when you're pushing that hard with front wing damage. And well, he may be up to P9, but now he's given himself an awful lot more work to do, and I don't think this is one of Finley's strongest tracks. From what I remember seeing him elsewhere. So yeah, he's just going to be in damage control mode today, but getting a track limits penalty, not much control of that damage today. 1.4 to Slash, slides through the right-hander there as Napple, the next victim of track limits. There'll be plenty of those today. I imagine there'll be a few more penalties coming the way of drivers, and I do wonder how it will affect the results as Leonardo goes for a move on Matisse around the outside for bus stop, and Matisse just lets him go. As Leonardo caught Matisse by surprise a bit there by coming into the pits. Matisse just had to lift off a little bit to avoid a collision, but both in safely in the end, and it's going to be the medium tyres for Leonardo and others. But where is Coolman? He's just coming down towards turn 1 now, and he should be comfortably ahead of all of them. So he's got to use these hard tyres now to full effect and not make too many mistakes.
much earlier pit stops off the hards and onto the mediums than I was predicting as Flenny moves past Louis into the podium places now. So I think Spyro's also moving past Nick. It is busy down that Kemmel straight at the moment. But yeah, that's very interesting from my perspective. I was expecting most of the hard runners to extend longer, but I think actually wanting to bridge that gap to the leaders because they were a few seconds down was an important motivator. I'm watching as Peristinato and Maliapis are battling it out down the Kemmel straight. Maliapis does get in front on those medium tyres as it stands. That surely is, well, maybe not. It's going to be difficult to extend those to the end of the race, though, I do believe. But he does move up into 13th place for the time being as Nick picks up a penalty. My, oh my, penalties are flying in at this middle phase of the race that could play a big role in the outcome later on. So Leonardo did get through that pit phase nicely. He's broken in front of Matisse. Finlay has got past Carafalidis on the run down towards Poulon, which is rather unusual. So many... Sorry?
Sorry, it was team play, Daka. Carafalidis moved out the way and let him pass those two teammates in PSGL. So, yeah, it's just a bit of team play for Carafalidis. Not on the pace today and letting his teammate go for some clean air as Nick gets past Spyro and Louis Baptiste into the pits as well. But sorry, Daka, continue what you were saying.
Yeah, so what I was trying to mention actually a little bit earlier was that I think the reason these guys are coming in early is to try and grab an undercut and try and close that gap to the top two. It might not be possible because the gap is just that large and these guys are still running at a very strong pace. We had Louis, Nick and Spyros all coming in off the hards and onto the mediums then and getting their second stints underway. Louis is going to come out right in the thick of things as Fenwick DeShawney does overtake Fraser yet again. So these guys are swapping around and running a very solid race at the moment with good pace. Protecting themselves from the drivers behind. But yeah, I think that may be a motivation to try and grab that undercut and at those mediums, we've seen how quickly they are out of the box. We saw that most justifiably with Coolman at the start of the race, making that early charge. He's now on the hards and is going to be suffering the opposite effect of that. But you do wonder, the likes of Fleddy, Sieb, Slash, how long they really want to extend when the majority of their competitors in this race have come in and have decided to get onto the mediums and grab an undercut. But what must be said is that Fleddy seems to be running a very strong pace, no slower than the leaders, and has that gap actually come down very slightly?
Yeah, I think it has. Not too much, but it has a little bit. Down to 3.7 now. But yeah, Fleddy really pushing hard. And yeah, his last lap was a 45.5 compared to the leader's last lap of 46.6 and a 46.9. So wow. Yeah, actually Fleddy catching quite quickly at this stage and unlocking some pace in that car that he didn't have earlier, perhaps, through the bus stop chicane. It's still about 3.8 as they come across the line. What are the lap times this time? 45.5 and 46.6 for the front two, and 46.3 for Fleddy. So yeah, not quite that much on this lap, but yeah, Fleddy on the move and could be a threat to the podium places, especially to Coolman, who's just coming through turn one now, just a little bit behind Chris Rebel, who he'll want to dispatch down towards Lecombe.
But we are seeing the power of that undercut because, well, we just saw that fastest lap from Leonardo, 1:44.1. So these fresh mediums are showing phenomenal pace at this stage, and Leonardo has completely gapped Matisse and is chasing down Coolman. Coolman still weaving down the straight. He's got past Chris Rebel in the end. But yeah, these mediums so quick out of the box, and Leonardo's pace in clean air now, finally. Again, he didn't qualify too well, but this drive through the race, he's shown phenomenal pace and is closing rapidly on the drivers in front, the fastest moving driver on the circuit. Matisse unable to live with him. Louis is getting up behind him, but watch out for Leonardo. I think he will struggle with tyres a little bit near the end of the race, but at this kind of pace, at least when the drivers in front do complete their pit cycles, Leonardo, you'd imagine, is going to come right back into play here.
Yeah, he's going to have his eye on Coolman. 3.2 seconds is the gap at the moment, but that's going to keep coming down over the next few laps. Someone's binned it further back out of no name. That is Nick. Nick, whose day has gone from bad to worse, and that is surely going to be, unless a safety car comes to his rescue, his day just about done and dusted in terms of chances for points. But Frank Jashorny getting past Fraser because the race leader is into the pits for the medium tyres. Fleddy comes in with him, but Sieb, Sieb and Frank Jashorny both stay out. So Coolman, he's coming down towards turn 1 now. Where's he going to be in relation to Fraser? That is the big question. Through La Source he goes, down the gears.
Leonardo.
And past the apex. Yeah, Leonardo as well coming through turn 1. Is he going to be in front of Fraser here? Yes, he is. Fraser out the pits, 1.2, 1.3 seconds behind Leonardo. Leonardo 3.2 behind Coolman, and Fraser has got some work to do here. He's going to have better tyres towards the end, but yeah, he's that undercut proving very, very valuable to the two cars now ahead of him.
That tyre advantage, we'll see how much it works for Fraser. Louis Baptiste drawing alongside and through on Matisse. Down the Kemmel Straight, moves up in possession number 6. Maliapis and Finlay are battling it out. Finlay going late on the brakes, brave around the outside. Another great move from Finlay, snatches up that 10th place on the road. Maliapis though, struggling now with tyres. 8 laps done on those. He will be beginning to feel it. Fleddy now the car in front of Finlay on fresh boots as well. And Finlay's going to have to work hard to stay with the man in front, then slashes in front of those guys. 2 seconds up towards Matisse, who's with Louis now, and then Fraser, who has duly got right back into that DRS of Leonardo. So fresh mediums proving to be a good advantage. Of course, Leonardo, he's given himself a fighting chance in this race with that undercut, but from now on in, it's going to be an uphill battle, especially against CPI Fraser. One thing that's going to be interesting, though, because the top 2 on the road did split strategies. Franek stayed out a lap longer. He comes in now on lap 14, which is actually around about when I expected the times, well, for these guys on the hards to come in. So early pit stops in general. Franek is in. Sieb and Coolman, of course, will stay out and inherit the race lead. He is going to be defending that with all of his might in the closing laps, trying to grab as many points as he can for his championship challenge. Franek is coming down the pit lane. Let's watch where he is in relation to Leonardo and Fraser. The answer is considerably behind him. The old hards, just nothing on the fresh mediums as Maliapis is retired. I think that's going into the pit. No, he's actually going down the main straight, I think. Oh no, sorry, I was watching the wrong car. He has actually, I believe, retired in the pit lane. So yeah. Maliapis' evening comes to an end, unfortunately, and that is another car gone from this race as Fraser immediately snatches up that move on Leonardo. And you can see how much Frank Jashorny has lost out, down in 6th, behind Louis and Matisse. Did he extend those hards for too long? He's now running in position number 6, and the man that he was running with, he's got a lap fresher tyres, but that is a monstrous deficit to try and close up.
Yeah, it really is. This is a very important lap for Leonardo as well. He's got to stay in the DRS of Fraser if he wants a chance at this race win, but it's going to be tricky for him in the last few laps. And that gap to Coolman coming down very, very quickly now. Already 2.5 seconds as Fraser reels him in on those mediums. But yeah, like you say, that undercut, absolutely massive. Just 1 lap undercut, and Fraser is some 4 seconds ahead of Frank Jashorny, who he was racing with and alongside for the whole first stint. And Franek's given himself a lot of work to do. He's definitely come in slightly too late here. Here he goes around the outside of Matisse, looking to get that done straight away, and does. Even before Blanchimont, a little bit of contact. Matisse, I think, tried to hold it on the inside, but eventually backed out. Frank Jashorny sort of giving him the side eye as they went past, saying, "You better back out of this one, buddy." And Matisse duly obliges, but Franek clearly willing to put everything on the line to get himself back into the fight for the race win after this strategy mistake. I think it's fair to call it now.
He's got Louis just in front of him. Can he get the DRS pass on this lap to give himself a clear run at the drivers in front? I think that Fraser, who's already dropped Leonardo out of DRS, is maybe a stretch too far unless the race situation drastically changes. Franek not near enough to Louis, doesn't have a whole lot of battery, so he doesn't have that firepower down the Kemmel Straight, can't quite make use of it as behind Slash moves through on Fleddy. He is working with a penalty, and another penalty for Finlay. He's been He's been distanced, by Fleddy as well, and kind of in no man's land at the moment, being hunted down by Stevens Viatic. So it doesn't look like Finlay is going to be taking a substantial haul of points from this race. So really good opportunity for Coolman, but defending this lead, well, I think you're seeing in front of your very eyes how difficult that is going to be, as Fraser is hawking him down at this stage and nearly in DRS already, as I believe someone's going off. I think that's Predestinato, who's missing an entire front wing heading out of No Name Corner.
Wow.
Recovering that car. Didn't see how that happened, but the yellow came out, and no front wing on that car. He's cruising around very slowly as it stands. And Predestinato, well, it's been a difficult evening together, went off strategy and coming foul there, getting another front wing damage. And that's one thing I have to note, is that in this race, a surprising amount of end plates and even full front wings coming off here at Spa. It's not a track I'd associate with it, but you're seeing drivers picking up damage all the way throughout this Grand Prix so far.
It's just because of the high-speed corners. Sometimes if a driver makes a mistake right in front of you, even a small error, you can go into the back of them and lose an end plate, especially in the first few laps. And we saw that happen as a lot of drivers came in for damage. Finlay didn't bother repairing his damage, by the way. He's still got the same front left end plate missing as he had after lap 1. So yeah, he's been fighting an uphill battle all race, and it's not been a good day for Finlay. He might even lose P2 in the championship with where Leonardo is, as Louis Baptiste makes it past Matisse for P5, and an overtake happening further back. I think that's Sieb getting past Finlay as well, who might even find himself out the points here. He is at the moment after penalties are applied. So yeah, not a good day for Finlay, as here comes Fraser right behind Coolman, who's going to defend this perhaps, but he might just let Fraser go and secure second place, although Leonardo with a 3-second time penalty for track limits is big news for Coolman, and will make him feel a lot safer, because Frank Jashawney quite a way behind and only 5 laps to go at the end of this one. So Coolman, if he can secure P2 here, even if Fraser wins, he will extend his championship lead and still be a comfortable distance ahead of the man who is dominating PSF3 at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Fraser chasing down Coolman, but yeah, maybe Coolman needs to think bigger picture here. I imagine he's not going to give up, and the tyre delta between the two will shrink in the closing laps. So, not out of the question just yet, but he does need to keep this honest. Fraser, though, I imagine with nearly a full battery, this should be a formality on the run towards Les Combes. Let's see then, heading down towards Eau Rouge, and then that big climb up Radion. I imagine Coolman has got no chance of fighting this. He will, I imagine, as Fraser is going to ease through and take away the race lead of the Belgian Grand Prix. Can Coolman stay in DRS? Frank Jashawney's pace is still quite intimidating back there. He will not want to take any chances. Can he stick with Fraser? I imagine Fraser is going to dump a lot of battery and try and put this Belgian Grand Prix to bed. Coolman will do his level best to stay with him, and he will have more of a chance in the closing laps, but I think with how quickly Fraser has chased him down and how easily he made that overtake work, staying in DRS for Coolman, that's going to be a mighty task.
Yeah, massive task for Coolman to stay in DRS there, and that pace for Frank Jashawney is indeed very scary. He was some 1.5 seconds faster than Coolman on the last lap, and so if that continues, then Frank is going to be in range of an overtake by the last couple of laps, and Coolman is going to have to defend this, as a big mistake through that right-hander is going to cost him quite substantially down towards bus stop. It's 8 tenths is the gap. He's only got 30% ERS. I imagine Fraser's not going to be too concerned whether Coolman stays with him or not, but actually maybe he might want to get out of the DRS range after all and push for it, because like you say, he's got to, both of these drivers have got to think bigger picture here. Fraser's not out of this championship fight just yet. DRS for Coolman, but look at that. He is running very low on the battery in that car. 9.5 tenths, 1.0. I think that's game over for Coolman's DRS as they go down towards Les Combes, which is the most important one on the circuit, and he hasn't got it. And Frank Jashawney, from about 5 seconds down the road, is going to perhaps be smelling blood up ahead, but he's going to be rapidly running out of laps. 44.9 for Frank Jashorny, nowhere near fast enough at this time. So we'll see if he can catch back up. He should be able to get Leonardo with that penalty, but yeah, getting to Coolman is going to be a big task.
His charge does seem to have stalled in the last couple of laps, and he is dragging drivers with him. Louis, Fleddy, and Matisse, they all have older tyres, but they are still able to just about stay in contact and give themselves a fighting chance if there's any misfortunes for Frank Jashorny. In Louis' case, maybe even trying to get on the offensive, maybe make a pass with that DRS. We see how difficult it is to defend. In fact, if you're not right out in front, it can be almost impossible to keep the driver behind you. So Louis will be thinking about that, but he has got Fleddy very close in company, and Fleddy's pace in this stint has been mighty impressive too. So Louis got to worry about that as he's all over the back of Louis Baptiste. He does have a penalty for Fleddy, but he does want to make the most of it, and he is charging towards Blanchimont. Goes to the left hand side, and Louis going to yield that one. Through goes Fleddy into the top 5 in this Belgian Grand Prix. He is still fighting an uphill battle with that penalty, but making good use of that rapid pace that he's displaying out on track. Next up, Frank Jashorny, he is on the charge. They are moving up towards Leonardo's DRS, and actually for Fleddy, that's going to be a bit of a target for him because both those drivers have 3 seconds worth of penalties. 1.5 seconds is the gap then. It is just under 3 laps to go. I'd say Coolman is pretty safe in second. Fraser certainly very safe in first, but we don't know the warning situation of these drivers. It's hard to say. There are a lot of drivers that have penalties at this stage, as Fleddy, I think, is going to make that move on Frank and catapult himself up towards Leonardo, but there may be some drivers that don't have penalties that have 2 warnings, and that could make these last couple of laps oh so tense for those guys.
It could indeed, and Fleddy is going to be cursing himself for that penalty because he is well in contention for a podium without it, but as it is, he is going to probably drop at least 2 or 3 spots by the end of this race, and he's going to be very disappointed in the end if it does end like that. Only 2.5 laps left to go, and Leonardo is struggling. He went very wide at Pouon there, and the gap comes down. Those tyres are getting worse and worse on that car, and Fleddy is now in DRS range, and Leonardo, well, he does have the penalty anyway, but he could lose all of these places on track position in the end regardless, as they come down towards bus stop for the 20th time. Fraser well in front, 3 seconds now. Coolman 3.5 seconds ahead of this chasing pack, and like you said, I think he should be safe for second place, which he will be very, very happy with, I think. But here they go down towards the chicane. Fleddy nearly into the back of Leonardo as he gets better on the brakes, but this is probably going to be a formality down to Lecombe.
Yeah, Leonardo, well, you mentioned how much he was struggling. He's on ancient tyres, and Fleddy deciding not to go for it. Leonardo rear locking into last source. The pace has just completely disappeared, and despite getting such a big boost with that undercut, well, he is going to be under so much pressure. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 drivers chasing him down, and Fleddy's going to waste no time. Goes onto the right hand side and down the Kemmel Straight. He's going to breeze through. Can Frank follow through, picking up that slipstream, dumping a load of overtake button, but as Leonardo gets back into the slipstream, he will hold on and maintain that 4th place, and that could be a chance for Fleddy to get up the road because Leonardo's pace has deserted him. Can Frank get through towards Bruxelles? He's got to run but can't quite find it. Leonardo, I think, with such low wings too, is able to stay out in front and maintain that 4th place. Fleddy now has such an opportunity to get rid of these guys in this middle sector where his tyre advantage is going to pay dividends here. So, with a lap and a half to go in the Belgian Grand Prix, Leonardo losing ground and Fleddy gaining it. Can he even threaten some of the drivers behind that don't have penalties? It is a tall order. Frank and Louis will be defending that, but they'll be a little bit apprehensive watching Fleddy go up the road so fast, especially as the man in front of them holding him up seemingly has no grip left in the tyres, and at every corner is sliding and hemorrhaging time to the man in front.
Yeah, there was a mistake from Franek earlier on through Pouon as well. He had to lift off to avoid going wide, but he needs to make this move quick because Fleddy's already out of the DRS and risks getting the 3 seconds he needs in this final lap if Leonardo holds these guys up anymore. Here comes Franek to the inside of bus stop, but backs out of it, nearly hits the back of him. Another penalty to Leonardo. That is him done and dusted for this battle for sure, and in fact he could lose out to Sieb as well, who's catching up very quickly with all this battle. battling. So keep an eye
Oh,
on
Louis!
Sieb too, as Louis down the inside of Franek to Shawnee. Very, very audacious send. Franek leaves him the room on the exit, but he will not be happy with that. They still should both get past Leonardo here down towards Lecombe, but is it already too late? 1.6 to Fleddy on the final lap. It's going to be 3 wide. Can Louis squeeze his way through? Yes, he can without going on the grass, and both of them get past Leonardo, who is, well, it was looking very, very good for him about 5 minutes ago, but now he is going to be down in P8, perhaps even lower when this race concludes.
The DRS down the straight have helped out Franek and Louis no end, and it's a controllable gap now to Fleddy up the head, so both of them should move up, and Franek is looking for that podium. Can Louis potentially snipe it away? It's going to be difficult, but we'll track that run down the run towards Blanchemont and the bus stop chicane. Maybe that is probably the last opportunity. This is a race that was fractured quite early on, and well, 3 drivers were way out in front early. Fraser, Kuhlmann and Franek. Franek maybe lost out on strategy. Kuhlmann, using that medium in the start to good effect, moved all the way up into the lead at some point, but the hards have betrayed him in this final stint, and no one has looked like stopping this man. CPI Fraser, he won in Japan, he won last week in Mexico, both with last lap passes. There's no such drama here. CPI Fraser takes the win, his 3rd in 4 races. Fraser wins again at Spa, 2nd, and such an invaluable result in the championship for Kuhlmann. He comes over the line. Franek will resist Louis to the line. 4th, Fleddy 5th in the end with penalties. Sieb jumps up to 6th, taking advantage of penalties with Matisse, and Leonardo slashes 9th. Finley will come over the line in 10th in the end, but it will be no points. Viatic will claim that one in P10, so it's Finley from Spyros, Crest Rebel, then Carfolitas, Nick, and Predestinato. Several drivers have had nightmare races here. I think Predestinato is going for a fastest lap at the death. Maybe not a race filled with quite as much drama as the ones that have preceded them, but in the end, it is the new guard of PSF3 coming through yet again, Fraser, and that was by far his most convincing win. Clearly, I mean, we saw in qualifying, we saw in the race, he just had that edge in race pace, and even with Kuhlmann grabbing that undercut and getting out in front, it never looked like CPI Fraser was going to be denied tonight.
No, absolutely not. He was leagues above. I mean, even if Franek hadn't had that, or if Fraser hadn't had that undercut on Franek, like you say, I don't think Franek really would have had what it took to stop him. He was so fast on those mediums, just leagues ahead of everyone else on that tyre. So can Predestinato get the fastest lap across the line? Yes, he can actually, and steals it off of Fraser, which, well, who knows, could be important for the championship going into the last few rounds, because Fraser trying to catch up to Kuhlmann in the standings. Who knows? I'll keep that point that was stolen off him in mind later on this season.
Obviously, every driver that's involved in a title fight will go back throughout the season and think, oh, I lost the point there. But in the end, with fresh softs, you'd imagine there wasn't a whole lot that Fraser could do about that one. So Predestinato grabbing that fastest lap at the end. I'll run you through the results one more time. Fraser takes away the win from Kuhlmann. Is the championship fight maybe going to be defined by some of those guys? We will see. Franek, a really solid 3rd place, and actually he will be moving further into contention too in the standings. Hasn't had a race victory, but very, very solid and very, very quick all the way throughout the season, especially in the later rounds. Louis continuing his inauguration into PSF3 with a fine 4th place from Fleddy. And Sieb, well, that shows the value of a clean race, getting up into P6 in the end ahead of Matisse. Leonardo, well, what could have been, ends up P8 from Slash and Sviatek. Finley, tough night all the way through. That's a very, very substantial points loss for him ahead of Spyros. Crest Rebel, Carfolitas, Nick and Predestinato did grab the fastest lap, again snagging away that fastest lap point. Moikuli, Napple, Maliapis and Wards not seeing the checkered flag in the end. So that is 9 of 12 rounds in the books, and the championship's really starting to take shape at this point. And we've mentioned it a couple of times, but for Kuhlmann, it wasn't a race victory, but that was such an important drive after starting 7th on the grid.
Absolutely brilliant drive, especially at the start when he just carved through the field, making all those places and getting himself into the position to do what he did, which was perform that undercut and stay with those top runners to build a gap. And like you say, a massively valuable result for the championship leader. He will extend his lead. We were talking about the championship getting a little closer last week. It has just gotten a whole lot less close, with Kuhlmann being out on 81 points now. Finley staying on 59. So it's going to be a 22-point margin going into the last 3 rounds for Kuhlmann. Of course, Fraser's going to be up there as well. He won't be too far behind. Just, I believe, 26 points behind Kuhlmann
Yes, that's
now.
right.
So, he's still very much in this, and Kuhlmann's got to watch over his shoulder, but he's going to be so happy with that result. He maximised this race today. I don't think he was going to beat Fraser, or anyone was going to beat Fraser today. And as well, talking of championships becoming more spread out, the constructors, Kuhlmann and Fleddy, massive result. P2 and P5, they're going to hugely extend their gap. It was 5 points between 3 teams going into this race, but it's going to be a massive lead for the team of Kuhlmann and Fleddy after this one. So big result for Kuhlmann today. I think even though Fraser did win this race, I think the biggest winner in general in the context of the championship today is Kuhlmann.
Yeah, I cannot disagree with that one there. Yeah, Kuhlmann taking a major step towards this PSF3 title. It is not over. I think that must be stressed. But Kuhlmann has enough of a lead. Of course, this wouldn't be good for his title chances, but even if he DNFs the next race, he will still lead the standings. Even if Finley behind has the best possible result. So Fraser, given momentum, does seem like the biggest threat to Kuhlmann and has chipped away at that gap a little bit, but you'd say with 3 rounds to go, it's not quite enough. But, well, no 2 races are the same. That is something that this season has certainly taught us. So we will look forward to the last 3 rounds, the first of which will come from, another track that is very beloved and steeped in history in Formula One. It is Monza, a track that, similarly, you'd say it has some similar characteristics, but in terms of the driving style that it draws on, it can be very different. So I think we can expect a wildly unique pecking order once again heading forward to that race. There is none quite like it, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. You can have championships like this. You can have the pecking order very much established, but Monza, it all goes out the window often. It really tends to bunch up the grid a lot more, and you have surprise people on pole position and surprise people in contention at the front, particularly in qualifying, but also in the race. As long as you don't make any mistakes, you should still be with that front pack, as long as you're a decent way up the grid. So, yeah, it's going to be a great race next week in Monza. It always produces, especially in league racing. I'm very much looking forward to it. And, like you said, the championship far from over still, but Kuhlmann's going to be feeling comfortable, and I agree with you that now Fraser is really his main threat at this stage. So we'll see if Fraser can close the gap in the next 2 rounds and give us a finale with it all on the line, because that's what you always want in the commentary box.
Yeah, certainly that's what we are wishing for. And Monza next up. I look back through the large list now of league races that I have commentated. I think a lot of my favourite races came at Monza, so that's certainly a lot to look forward to. So that is round 8 at Spa in the books, with both Kuhlmann and the constructor of Mercedes, with Kuhlmann and Fleddy tightening their grip on both championships, but it is far from over. Make sure to tune in to next week's race at Monza. If past league races at Monza that I've seen are anything to go by, it's going to be a cracker, so make sure to tune into that one. But I think with just about everything said and done for tonight, I think from myself and Ghost, once again, big thank you to GT Omega and SRC for making PSGL possible and allowing us to bring it to you once again. But I think finally, from myself and Ghost, it is goodbye for now. And until next time, we'll see you later.